So when we talk about standing in the light, what does that mean to us? You know, a lot of times, to me, just my opinion on this, but a lot of times when we say, you know, stand in the light, what do we think? We think about somebody, a performer, a musician, somebody who's doing a lecture that goes into the spotlight, where they come out of the darkness, out of the galleys of the side of the stages and come on, and this light shines on them. And there they are in the middle of the stage waiting, or people are waiting for them. And they emerge from this dark place, right? On the sides of the stage or the sides of the room or whatever it happens to be. And that understanding to me of light and dark has always been a fascination, because we've always been taught, or at least I've always been taught, that light is good and dark is not. And I don't know whether that comes from our childhood fears of when you're in the dark, there's monsters under the bed. You know, when you're in the dark, you can't see what's coming up. When you're in the dark, there's, you know, you're not aware of things. And light is good. That's why things in spiritual places like churches, a lot of times are shown as light. They're shown with halos. What's halo? Except somebody's energetic light. And all of the things that are supposed to be the bad things are shown in the dark. You know, if you're from Christian background, the devil, you know, that's a big one, right? It's always a big one. And hell is the big one. You know, it's dark, it's red, it's fiery, it's evil. And when you think about those things for a minute, the red and the dark, okay? And again, coming from a Christianity aspect, the devil is always shown as red. But when we look at what that color is, it represents in our energetic, the root chakra that we all have in our energetic system. And that root chakra is what brings us into this world. That root chakra is what keeps us grounded in this world. That root chakra is red. So in some ways, what I believe Christianity and some aspects of faith are telling us is that being ourselves, red, grounded, all of that part is wrong. Being grounded in our world, being part of our world as human, is not what we want to do. We are supposed to be light, bright, and in the white. Now, is that real? Think about it for a minute. How many people have come through that kind of background in their church life? I know I did. And the more I've thought about it, the more I've had to look at it and say, what are they really subliminally telling us? That we're not good enough as we are. As we are. And who we are should not exist in the way it exists. And I have to say, I don't feel that's very encouraging. I don't necessarily feel that that's something we should be hearing as we grow up and in our adulthood, that we're not good enough, that we don't stand in our own light, that we are dark, that we are red, that we are this, that we are that. And what is our light? Our light is our soul. Our light is that thing within us that never goes out, that never turns off, that never leaves us. It's something that keeps us in who we are. But what happens is, what our physical presence does a lot of times is not follow what our soul needs. It doesn't follow our soul's growth. What it does is our brain gets in the way and says, you're supposed to do this, you're supposed to do that, you're supposed to do this, you're supposed to do that. And how many people, when they follow that all of their life, don't feel that they're in their own light? That always feels like something's off. It always feels like we're feeling heavy in our body. And I don't mean that weight-wise, just heavy in our body. We're feeling sad. We're feeling depressed. We're feeling in dis-ease, out of ease. And then what happens to our physical body? So when we are in our light, to me, that means we are doing what our soul is moving us forward to do. How many people have had times in their life where no matter what they go to do, they're always kind of pushed in a little bit of a different direction? They're always moved into some other area of life. I know I went to school to be a teacher. I have a teaching certificate, whatever that's worth these days. But I never used it in an actual K-8 classroom after I graduated. And I often wondered, and probably my parents wondered that too, because they sent me to college. Like, what is this girl doing? I always wondered why I was drawn to that. Why was I drawn to teaching? When I was 6 or 7, I wanted to be in the Peace Corps. That never came about. I ended up in teaching. Why did I go in teaching? But what's happened over the course of time since I've been out of college is everything I've moved towards has had an element of teaching in it. Everything from my day job to this has had an element of teaching in it. And when I teach and when I'm in that stream, that's when my soul is the happiest. That's when it feels to me that I'm in my light, in my presence, in my body, but in my light. And so when these things happen, that moves us off that course of what our soul needs for us to be us, then what happens? We're feeling discontented, or we're feeling something's off, but everybody says, hey, you've got a house, right? You've got a car, you've got a family, you've got all of these things. Life should be great. And it is for a lot of people with those things, if that's what your soul needs, wants, is growing with. And if it's not, the universe has a funny sense of humor. Because I know with me, when I haven't moved out of something I should have, I get kicked to the curb. Because that's the only way I get moved. I'm not one to give up on things. And I'm not one to say, okay, I'm done here and I'm going there. I have to get kicked to the curb. And the universe does that. So if something's coming to an end for you, you need to look at it and say, is it really the end? Or am I getting kicked out of this? Is my soul starting to bring me into an area of difference for me because that's where I'm supposed to be? Not that we're losing this friend or this family member or this home or this or that. It's, am I being moved in a way that makes sense for me? And the only person that can answer that is ourselves. It's the only person that can answer that. I know I had a conversation with somebody just this week about why certain people are kind of falling out of their lives, right? This friend, which was a friend forever, is no longer a friend. Haven't we all had that at some point in our life? Where, what did we do? Well, maybe we didn't do anything. Maybe what's going on is that we're in our light, and that light is not the other person's light. And therefore, what happens? We start to move away from things that no longer nourish that light. Now, is it easy? No. Do we not cry about it or get upset about it? No. Why? Because we are human. We come with all the trappings of humanity. So does it upset us? Of course it does. But if we can look at it for the bigger picture, then perhaps we can find in it the piece of why things are changing, why things are different, why things are not like we thought they were supposed to be. Doesn't mean that we can't make mistakes, but what it does mean is that sometimes what we think is a mistake is not a mistake. It's actually moving us out of that dark edge of the stage and moving us into the spotlight of what is our life. And these are the kind of, to me, again, this is just my opinion about this stuff. To me, what's so hard sometimes about being human is marrying the two, our soul and our humanity, our soul's needs, our soul's desires, our soul's teachings, and then the humanity of us that sometimes where we use our brain and say, I shouldn't be doing that. I shouldn't be doing that. But our soul is pushing us towards. How many people have had times in their life where all of a sudden it's like, you know, hey, I want to read about a different culture. You know, I want to read about this. I want to look at this. I want to look at this documentary. I want to learn about these things. There was one time all of a sudden, everything in my house was Native American. I'm like, how did this happen? You know, but I'd pick up something here and something there, and all of a sudden a room would be that, and then another room would be that. I'm like, what's going on? Now that's changed and that's shifted. And so is it that my soul is looking for what makes sense for me at that time? I believe so. And what made sense for me at one time may have been more Native American, still is in a lot of ways. Maybe another time it may be something that's totally different. And if you look around your house, your home, you'll see those parts of yourself of where am I being pulled towards? What makes me feel like I'm home? Not home, but home. Home. And when this song came on about standing in my light, standing in the light, to me, it's not again about good and bad, evil and not evil. It's about all the parts of us, all the parts of us. Because dark isn't bad. Dark is just the absence of an element of light. And when you think about what grows in the dark, the bulbs underneath the ground all winter long. And then as we see outside today, and hopefully where you guys are in your homes, you'll see daffodils and hyacinths coming up and all of these things that have been under the ground all year in the dark, emerging. Babies in the womb, in the dark, emerging. Things that are in the dark are not bad. It's part of being able to grow. It's part of the life cycle. It's part of our soul and our humanity. So when we talk about being in light, let's look at it from a perspective of it's not necessarily, okay, I'm in light, I'm good. Let's look at I'm in my light because I'm aware of what my soul is. I'm aware of what my lessons may be. I'm aware of the fact that if I don't get it right, it's not the end of the world. That's my brain thinking. And also, if I'm kicked to the curb from something, maybe I need to look at, do I no longer have to be there? So light and dark, always a thing in not only religious texts, but in our childhood stories. You know, the big bad wolf in the dark woods. All of these things, when we think about them, bring us to a thought of it's two separate things. And it's not. It's on one spectrum. Light is on one spectrum. Just what part of the spectrum are you on? So hopefully as you go through your week, you might have some thoughts about that for yourself. What does that mean for you? What are your soul's desires? What are you gravitating towards? What are you stopping yourself from? Because our mind says, oh my gosh, you're going to fail at that. Oh my gosh, you better be afraid of that. And our soul is like, go, keep going. Let's listen. Let's look at us not as two separate things, but as a soul having this experience, and where does that experience take us? So enjoy your week thinking about that. Hopefully it's not something that is difficult in the sense, but something that could be meaningful when we look at these difficult times of life, and also when we look at the good times of life. Is our soul soaring? Is our soul needing? Is our soul pushing? What's going on with our soul? So thank you, everybody.